So it would.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Kim Brad.
I would like to call this meeting to order. Can we please have a roll call?
Yes, Treasurer Diota.
Here.
Dean Rondo.
Here.
Mark Perillo.
Here.
Michael Cicero.
Here.
Joseph Codiga.
Here.
Matthew Howard.
Here.
Jen Lane. Yes. Darren McCabe. Here. William Murray.
Here.
Claire Newell. Here. Andrew Nada.
Here.
Alan Palazzo.
Here.
Sandra Beckett.
Here.
Dr. Laura Shawnews. Here. Michael Tui.
Here.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Heidi. We'll move on to the approval of the draft meeting minutes of 7/9/2025 retirement board meeting. Do I have a motion or any comments or edits? So move. Second. Second, all in favor, vote aye. Any nays? Nays, so moved. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to your report, Heidi.
Yes, we have, as you know, it's rather action-packed agenda today, so I won't spend a lot of time. But I did want to highlight, two items that we'll be covering at our October board meeting. The first is we're looking at a GRS recommendation to slightly increase the state police, employer contribution rates for fiscal year 27 and possibly fiscal year 26. And that is due to some FAS enhancements that they had passed in the last legislative session. So we'll be doing that. And then we also have a board member request for next month. Sandra Beckett has requested that we have a discussion and we consider a matter she'd like to talk about. The fact that retirees have had, excuse me, a negative benefit impact since VERSA 2011. And so we'll be seeing that for next month as well. For now, I'd like to introduce Stacy Whitten, the ERSRI CFO, and she'll be running us through our annual budget presentation. And take it away, please.
Thank you, Stacy.
Okay, so this is the most exciting piece of today's agenda. So I think I'm running around this, but one moment. Most of this you will remember from prior years, but our first, one moment, no problem. There we go. She's passing control. Let me see.
Right out for me to have you do it.
I know problem.
Go ahead. Move the slides.
Perfect. So the first page is just explaining that the board has the legal authority to review and approve our annual administrative budget for our retirement and investment offices to operate our functions. The ERSRI budget is a piece of the treasury budget as a whole. And there is a calculation of our cap that we're allowed as budgetary spending, which is a 5-year average of our investment portfolio, 17.5 basis points of that 5-year average. And on the next slide, I show the historical calculation of that amount, and the bottom line is showing you the last 5 years of our investment portfolio. The yellow column is that average, and then the blue column is showing you the 17.5 basis points. So the most we would be able to spend would be 19 billion, and the budget we're showing you today is at 15.9. It's consistent with last year's enacted budget, and this sheet also shows you in that navy blue column our actual expenditures over the past few years. And we can talk about that a little bit at the end of our presentation, where I can show you the difference from fiscal 25. So if we move to the next one, our budget is kind of broken into 3 categories. We have our personnel costs, which are salaries and wages. We have contractual services, which is all our vendor contract payments, and then our third category is operating. So the biggest piece is our salaries and wages. That includes, the 39 FTEs we have here at retirement. It includes 5 FTEs we have at our investment office, which is on Capitol Hill. And it also includes the allocations we receive for other treasury staff that are helped along in our operations on a day-to-day basis. We've included my estimates include 4% contractual salary increase for the state police fund. We have included the new CISO position, which will be one of those treasury staff members that has a portion of their time allocated to our office. We've included the increase for the new executive director role and new FTE to be added to work between the information that comes in from the employers, ensuring it's accurate point, so that members' records are completed by the time they come into retire. And feel free to stop if you have any questions along the way.
Stacy, one quick question. That 4% you referenced, I'm assuming that includes salary, new employees, benefit, cost increases, everything, right?
Correct.
It's not just salary, it's
Correct,
the full
yes.
compensation package, right?
And the current year is 4%, next year is 3%.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm
Current year
sorry.
is
26
4%,
is
the
for
COLA, which was
the one we're
awarded
looking
several
at,
months.
27 is three, I'm sorry.
And what percentage is for salaries, actual salaries? I know the 4% includes salaries and other expenditures, but I was wondering.
That is just salaries. And then many of the benefits are defined as a percentage of salaries. For example, the employer pension contribution is a percentage of the salary. So when the salary goes up, the cost of the benefit goes up proportionally. But that 4 or 3% next year is the salary growth rate.
It constitutes the increase in, in earnings. So in other words, it is a 4% raise.
It's the base pay.
Yes, yes, there was a 3-year contract, yes, so it's including.
Okay.
Years, yes.
That's right.
Okay, so on the next slide, so the next category is our contractual services, which is all our vendors that we have our large contracts with, so this is about like 30% of our budget as well. Some of the major categories are pretty much the same from year to year, so I'm kind of talking about the same things each year, but our legal services we've budgeted 400,000, that includes the board counsel with loads. It includes some costs for lingering matters that are still being worked on by the board counsel. And it includes payments for hearing officers for any potential legal challenges that we have during. Our accounting, audit, actuary costs are another large piece. So fiscal 27 will be the 5th year of our contract with GRS. So the amount included in the 5th year services would be our valuations, our GASB 67, 68 reporting. But we've also included funding in there to do the RFP for a new contract since the one with GRS will be coming to a close. We include 150,000 for any potential special studies requested by the General Assembly. And we've included some audit fees of 150,000 to do some internal audit work with the employer units, ensuring accuracy of the information they're reporting to us. The biggest piece is probably our IT contract. At, I think, the last board meeting, it was approved, or maybe the prior one, to renew the contract with TELUS Health for 6 more years. So our annual fees for our business system with them would be the 1.4 million. We do include change orders, and we've included some funding for the TIA interface on our website to give members more accessibility to do their financial planning in one place. And then under the other contracted services, we have the second year of our IT security and compliance contract. And we have started discussions to enhance our death reporting services. We've been working with other retirement systems to get feedback on how they're utilizing other agency vendors to ensure accuracy there. Our software agreements, are there was a new GASB a few years ago that required them to be disclosed on our financial statements. So this shows an increase in our investment related software-based agreements that we have through the administrative expenses. Our last operating expenditures is usually the smallest part of the budget. We have postage here. We've included some costs expecting postage to continue increasing. This is just your standard, our newsletters, our pension checks, our 1099s, and any special mailings if we had a board election or a category. And then under office and supplies expenses, we have our membership fees for our staff here, our staff at investments. The convene software that you all use is included in the computer software category. And then our miscellaneous is our police and fire reimbursement. I explained that to you before. That's sort of, should any disability appeals be successful, then ERSRI is responsible to reimburse the employers for the salaries and wages that were paid to those members while they were injured on duty. We have our printing costs for those same things, the newsletters, board elections, 1099s. And then we have our occupancy costs, which includes our rent for here at 50 Service Ave and our portion of space at DOA for our investment staff. It includes any temp rental charges or specializations if we were to relocate our office. And then it includes security, our Capitol Police that is down at the front. And then our last other category is just insurance. We have our cyber insurance in there, property casualty insurance, so kind of standard. And then this is just a pie chart. I think my next one is just a pie chart. Yes, just showing you the breakout. You can see the breakout of each of those categories. And then our final slide was just based on at our admin committee meeting where, as you know, we usually have not spent our entire enacted budget. So I'm showing you for 25, the first column is what was enacted. The second column is what we actually spent. And then with an explanation for some of that savings, you can see that we underspent by 1.9 million. So some of those things were the benefit calculator for the website was budgeted in 25, but it was not completed until recently in 26 recently. So we didn't have that cost in our 25 actuals. We had some IT services that were previously provided by a vendor, which are now utilized through a temp. So those are not spent. Our IT security compliance audit that we spoke about didn't happen in 25. And those investment software costs that we talked about, the RFP didn't get done until 25. So those costs don't show up until 26. And then the bottom category are just things that we had budgeted for in 25 that didn't happen. We didn't do our voice system upgrade. We didn't move. And the insurance, our cyber insurance was much less than we had actually budgeted for that year. So that was about $100,000 of saving. So that was included to just give you a little background.
Any questions for Stacy?
Hi, Jeff.
I'll say that when the committee reviewed the budget, one thing that has been typical in recent years is that the budget has significantly exceeded the actual spending. And I think that's because there are many line items in the budget that are contingencies for events that might happen. Rather than an actual estimate of what we think will actually happen. So I appreciated that you put some of the information about areas of underspend last year. And if you could highlight some of the areas in the budget that might be appropriate to call a contingency, things that you put in the budget, but may or may not actually happen next year for our awareness.
Sure. Oh, go ahead, did you? It's probably one item, of course, is the potential move. We discussed that in some detail, I guess. And that's just, because we really don't know what's gonna be happening in 2027 with the HVAC project that may or may not occur on the premises. We've had some conflicting information about whether it will actually be going forward or not, and so we wanted to build something into the budget just in the event we need to. fix that. But,
Are we referring to the possible acquisition of the Citizens Building in East Providence? Because I understood that had gone away.
No,
No,
that's,
that's ours.
that's a separate matter, yeah.
Is that the building you had referred to
Yeah,
the
that
other day?
was an issue of the past couple of years. I think there's speculation that they might need to do some HVAC work in this building. Depending on how that project goes, if it even happens, it might require that tenants of this building vacate, but there is no specific plan in place, other than the fact that there's a Department of Administration server room in this building that might require some HVAC improvements. I'm not aware of any specific plan to deal with that on any specific timeline. It's not like there's an RFP out for that work or something. And then even if it did happen, what would be the impact on the tenants of this building is still uncertain. It's possible they could do it while with all the tenants still in the building. It's possible it would be disruptive.
Any other questions for Stacy?
I,
Please.
so. There were some projects that were either carryovers or weren't initiated. I'm assuming that those costs are carried over into the next year.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Some of the areas too, Joe, you were mentioning like special studies, so. In the few years that I have been doing the budget, I think one year we actually even spent more than 125,000 on those special studies. So that's one of the areas where we budget contingency, but don't always spend it. That was when West Warwick joined, so. And I think change orders are another, with that West Warwick joining, we had to restructure the system and we had change orders to implement that. That's another area, so.
And the cost of those special studies would be determined by if another unit joins MERS or if there's a lot of legislative activity that year.
That raises another question that. When other units are joining, shouldn't those costs come out of their funds?
So those, like at West Warwick as an
Right.
example, so these administrative costs end up allocated across the plan, but
Right.
those do not.
Okay.
So when West Warwick, Central Falls, when those happen and they're directly related to an employer unit, we charge those directly with that employer, yes.
Sure.
Legal and change orders and special and studies, with the actuaries are all in.
Concern would be that the other units would be supplementing those coming into the system, and that just wouldn't be fair. So thank you for that.
No problem.
Bill?
I would just say it's a safe budget. I think it's well thought out. Obviously, the move is, you don't know. I'd rather see it where it's there in case it does happen, and we can always adjust, but I just look at it as a fairly well thought out, safe budget.
Yeah, it's a very consistent budget year
Yeah.
after year. Whatever's not spent, nothing disappears, it just goes back to the funds.
We don't want anything to disappear.
No, exactly.
Okay,
Fact. There are no further questions. I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll move approval.
second,
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? No nays? So Stacy, thank you.
Thank you.
Good work. To you, back to you, Heidi.
But I think.
Okay, so okay, we will now move to the approval of the July 2025 and August 2025 pensions as presented by ERSRI. Take a motion to approve.
Motion to approve?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? So moved. Right, we'll move on to legal.
Yes, thank you, Treasurer. So the legal reports are included for your benefit. Since the last board meeting, the appeal in Pearson matters, so that's been filed and that's now before the Supreme Court with a briefing schedule. So I know that was a concern. Last time we were waiting for the order to enter, so the order did enter, and an appeal was taken. Aside from that, most of the other updates are procedural in nature. I do know that we have Attorney Robinson here, who's going to present a matter in executive session. So if there's not any questions on the actual reports, I think entertaining a motion to enter executive session would be appropriate.
All right,
Chair.
I'll need a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A2 to discuss litigation involving the retirement board. Now I'll need a roll call.
Okay, Treasurer
So,
Diaz.
yeah,
I'll make a motion.
Oh.
That motion.
Motion, I'll make the motion.
Motion, second.
She,
Oh, we're gonna say
You have a second from.
second, no,
Treasurer Diaz.
yes.
Jean Rondo.
Yes.
Mark Rulo. Mark Rulo.
Yes.
Bill Cicerone.
Yes.
Joseph Padilla.
Yes.
Matthew Howard.
Yes.
Yen Lee. Yes. Brandon McCabe.
Yes.
William Murray.
Yes.
Claire Newell. Yes. Andrew Nada.
Yes.
Helen Palazzo.
Yes.
Sandra Paquette.
Yes.
Dr. Shahu. Yes. Michael Tu.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Clear the rooms.
Yep. That's the one of these judgments, the safest measure. So. Yeah. That's on for sure. No, so the Zoom has been on, actually, unused. Page, like it's traction, just, yeah, like laying out on the back end. I'm sure. Also don't see.
Yeah.
That's what we're.
How is it then?
No. It's right there.
Never mind. Yeah, yeah. Mhm. No.
He's not a third.
No, no, we don't wanna see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guy next to me. Bill Scott.
That's an hour.
Tonight, yeah, you said.
All right, thank you. We'll resume. I'll turn over to attorney to report out. We'll have an
Yeah.
executive session.
So in executive session, 3 motions were considered, voted on, and all passed. The first motion was a motion to dismiss the appeal to the workers' compensation appellate board in the Michael Bronson versus MERS WCC number 2022-01111. There's another motion to seal the minutes of the executive session, and then there was a motion to exit executive session.
Good, thank you. We will now move on to committee reports. We'll take on the disability. Doctor?
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the disability committee recommendations from the July 31st, 2025 meeting numbers 1 through 6.
You have a second? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
So,
From that same meeting, I'll make a motion to approve number 7.
second,
I need to abstain.
abstain. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Nays, so moved. Well, thank you. All right, we will now turn it over to the
Right,
government.
I've got another one.
Oh, one more, sorry.
But
I forgot what those.
I know, but didn't,
You've already completed the approval.
I know, but he didn't say that. Did you want to put on the record that you recruit used?
I just did.
Yeah, Matt Howard.
That's like the refusal, it's not.
Excuse me, sorry, I used the wrong word. Yeah, no, it is a recusal, correct.
Had a different name, I apologize.
Sorry.
Okay. I'll also make a motion to approve the disability committee recommendations for the September 5th, 2025 meeting, numbers 1 through 10.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the governance committee. We have an update on the search process for an executive director. Andy, please.
Yeah, thank you, Treasurer Diosa. On behalf of the governance committee, we're here today in our designated role, managing the recruitment process to fill the executive director position. And we're pleased to announce that we come before the full board today with a candidate for your consideration. The committee made up of Gene Rundo, Matt Howard, Mark Carullo, Gonzalo Cuervo, and myself. Is here seeking support for candidate Andrew Roos, and also to seek the board's support to authorize the governance committee to negotiate the terms of employment. Before I move on, first of all, this has been, I think we're all hopeful we're going to wrap this up today. It's been about an 8-month process. I really want to thank the other committee members for their commitment. And in a few moments, I'll thank not only our consultant Kim Bradney, but our candidate, Mr. Roos, for really enduring what is the most comprehensive executive search process that really I've ever been involved in. And I think it was done at a very, very high level. And so I want to say thank you to each of our committee members for the hard work and commitment that they put into that process. This process, again, has been comprehensive in every way. And I'd like to begin today's discussion by turning things over to our consultant, Kim Bradney, who's a vice president and search consultant with CBiz. If you remember back, CBiz was secured back in the March-April timeframe. We started this process and early discussions back in February. So it has been quite a run that we've had. And I think that the full committee has enjoyed our interaction with Kim and her team from CBiz, who really functioned at an incredibly high level throughout this entire process. So I'm going to turn things over to Kim, who's going to run us through a fairly comprehensive look at the process, because I think as Kim finishes up, that's going to answer, I think, at least an element of questions from the board regarding the process that was instituted in a comprehensive nature and all the steps that the committee took to get to today's candidate presentation. Kim.
Great, thank you so
Welcome.
much, I appreciate it, thank you, thanks, so, thanks, Kathleen, for pulling that up, I appreciate it. Wait till you get there, but I will echo, the sentiments and a big thank you to our governance committee. This has been quite the process. We kicked off with the contract signing, with Frank on the 24th of April. So this has been a long and very comprehensive process from then. We really had our formal kickoff with the governance committee here on May 9th. And from there really moved into kind of 3 different phases of our process. And so the first phase is really our preparation phase, where we did some very in-depth interviews, if you will, with all of our stakeholders here who were interested in being a part of conversations, so that we could really do some deep needs analysis around what do we need to see in the next executive director for the system. And so we spent significant amount of time on the front end doing preparation to really understand what will make someone successful in this role. And from those conversations, we were able to pull together a position specification, created a search strategy for a national search with also some local search focus, so that we were being as widespread and comprehensive as we can in and kind of throwing that net out there and talking to as many people as possible to narrow down the pool that we presented back to the governance committee. We did a lot of proactive candidate generation, is what we call it in the search world. So where we're reaching out to our deep network within the pension world, we have also internally a lot of retirement practices that we serve different retirement and pension systems in different ways. And so have internal folks that we're also able to reach into for referral process, to really understand who out there should we be talking to and who should we be evaluating for positions. So we did a lot of targeted outreach for not just referrals, but also to candidates to garner interest in the position. And then we also created an advertisement and posted the position to see who else might we get from an advertisement perspective. And we put that out there on some very targeted websites, pensions and investments, different sites that we know will drive that interests that we're looking for. And so from those processes, we were able to really attract a large number of very highly qualified candidates. So then it became our process, kind of phase two, which is our evaluation phase. We evaluated 70 different candidates on our end. The committee was not responsible for reviewing all of those, but really evaluating all of the skills, knowledge, abilities, for those that we felt were qualified, which there were 25 initial interactions from those 70 that we felt truly met the qualifications we were looking for. We dove in and did a multi-pronged approach with candidates at that point in time. So we have them complete an extensive questionnaire so that we can see what is their writing style, how are they approaching things, what does that look like? We have initial conversations with them to talk not just about the role, but why they're interested and what their initial, kind of that initial evaluation of skills, and will they be able to meet those qualifications that we're looking for. From those candidates, you'll see we brought it down to kind of 18 candidates that we dove in more deeply with and actually did full interview processes. And so taking them through extensive interviews on our end, spending over, probably close to 2 hours with each candidate, and then continued follow-up throughout the process. We had 12 candidates that we actually brought forward and did a full presentation to the governance committee. And so from that, the governance committee received resumes, our formal presentations, and then we had deep discussion about the candidates and who we felt were the most qualified candidates from that slate to be able to move forward into the interview process, which is kind of phase three, which is where we really dive in and have a lot more time and commitment from the governance committee. So the governance committee then stepped in and they interviewed 7 candidates for initial interviews, which were done via video. And from those interviews, and I will say Andy and I worked very closely on pulling together some interview questions. I don't want to call it just a question, but how are we going to go through the interview? What does it look like? Who wants to ask which questions? And then how do we ensure that we're keeping it fair and consistent throughout that interview process, but also allowing for ensuring that we're getting to the individual skills and abilities with follow-up questions so that we're really diving in deeply to what someone can bring to the table for the position. From those 7 initial Zoom video interviews, we selected 3 candidates for an in-person interview, which was the second round interview, and we brought them here. 2 of those candidates were out-of-state candidates and 1 was a local candidate. And then from there, we have some considerations, statistics. I don't need to read through all of this. I know we've already talked through who our governance committee members were, who was in attendance. You can see here. We did meet as a committee, or I met with the committee 7 times during the course of the search to talk through candidates, to present additional candidates throughout the process. So it was time intensive, it was labor intensive, and just a big thank you to everyone here. On our next slide, I think we just outlined kind of the dates and what we were doing in each of those meetings. So if anyone has any questions about the process or anything that we went through there, happy to answer any questions. But I will say it was a labor of love from everyone involved, and I appreciate all of the time and energy that went into it.
Thank you.
Any
Any questions?
Yeah, the only thing that I would add to what Kim mentioned is in terms of the questions, you're probably wondering, right? Because we've been dealing with it for so long, we're immersed in it, where those who are on the board who are not, you're probably curious as to what we were talking about, what kind of questions, but we set up the remote interviews with 10 set questions for each of those 7 that we interviewed in that process. I think we ended up with more than 7, I think. Or was it just 7? I think it was just 7. Just 7 in that initial. But then when we moved to the in-person, we actually still had the 10 questions, but we actually, and if anyone's interested, we can tell you kind of the broad topics that we covered. We had 5 questions, 1 for each committee member, but then we uniquely kept it open for the committee member to be able to draw out their own unique question for that specific candidate. Should there be something that they wanted to follow up with, or there was something unique in that person's background or job experience and skill set that they wanted to probe a little bit deeper that may or may not be applicable to the other candidates. So we went through that, I think it worked fairly effectively, and I think each of the committee members was able to get out on the table and engage each candidate in a unique way that gave us a good glimpse of how they would assimilate in this setting with this larger board, working with the treasurer's office, working with individual board members, and working with the system itself.
Just a comment, I've been involved in 2 of these searches on boards that I'm on. And this is, to me, amazing how thorough you people were and the time you put into it. I won't mention the boards, but we didn't go through this process. And I'm not speaking on the candidate itself. I'm just saying of the overall direction that you took this is amazing. And I compliment you very highly for this work. I know it's tough when you try to get everything into it. And but you certainly, from all looks of it, you did the job. So I compliment you for that work.
Thanks, Kim. Yes, thank you. Kind of in moving forward, what I'd like to do is just make a few comments on, we've got Mr. Roos with us here, and clearly would like to get him before the full board, for him to introduce himself and to engage in a question and answer period. But before doing that, I just want to give you a very high level, very brief perspective from the committee perspective, which was a 5-0 vote to be able to move Mr. Roos's candidacy before you today. The governance committee members are all here today, so they'll be part of the process. It's up to them whether or not they want to follow with any comments after I make a few general comments about the process and Mr. Roos himself. But they'll be here to be able to follow up should you have any perspective on any individual committee members moving forward. And then after that, we're going to invite Mr. Roos to come up and sit at the end of the table, and he'll provide for a limited introduction, and then we'll dive right into question and answers. I think the committee's hope in that process is to do our best to be respectful of time, but clearly this is a big decision, so I'll defer to the treasurer regarding the extent of time needed. I mean, ideally, if we can keep this within an hour, if we can keep questions from board members to initially, because I have no idea how many are going to want to ask questions or follow-up questions, maybe 1 per person, but if time allows, of course, there can be appropriate follow-up, and again, defer to the treasurer regarding how much time they would like to go through this process, but also to be respectful of the board members who have not been intimately connected with the process as we have been on the committee for the past, 6 plus months. But in brief, I want to just note a couple of things. Mr. Roos is a Rhode Island resident today, lives in East Greenwich with his family, comes before the board with in excess of 30 years of diverse work experience, and serving in various capacities in different parts of the country. The vast majority of those positions serving in a management or high-level administrative capacity. Many of these prior experiences included budget oversight, strategic planning, goal setting, problem solving, and direct personnel management that we felt strongly were all compatible with the responsibilities of the executive director position. In addition to that, Andrew is highly innovative, and I think that comes through in terms of his responses to many of the questions that we presented him with. It has a strong executive presence, demonstrates strong qualifications for the role through his comprehensive understanding of ERSRI operations, having had that contact for multiple years during a prior position that he held here in Rhode Island, proven ability to manage complex stakeholder relationships, and has deep experience with board governance. In the committee's opinion, his skill set uniquely qualifies him to navigate the Rhode Island governmental landscape, you might say, while maintaining operational excellence. Not an easy thing to do, as we all know. With his established relationships across Rhode Island's governmental sector, we felt an administrative landscape combined with his change management expertise and forward-thinking approach to technology implementation, we felt that Andrew offered what we felt was a steady form of leadership and institutional knowledge necessary to guide and assist this organization through, which is probably once in a lifetime. You have an executive director serving for multiple decades with a particular style and a particular approach, and really anybody that follows that person, most will have an uphill battle to be able to do it. But we felt that the broad experience and qualifications that Mr. Roos brings to the table and that you're about to talk about really placed him in a position that we felt he was best equipped of all of those 70 candidates to be able to not only transition, but to be able to move this organization forward, not only stabilize it, working with the professional team, but also address some of our future challenges that we have with our members and with the economic environment, and really to stabilize and sustain the pension system as we look forward. So that being said, I would like to invite Mr. Roos to come to the table. Yes, Matt.
If you don't mind,
Please.
just before you
Yeah.
start, that's what you guys.
Yeah.
So there's something I wanted to address, in regards to Mr. Roos. Looking at his resume first glance, when I first got this information, the thing that stuck out to me was Gina Raimondo. And Andy will tell you, I sat in this room and I said, absolutely not. No way. I'm like, because if anything that has to do with that comes back into this office, I'm gonna not be happy about this, and I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of other unhappy people. I was very adamant about it. No offense, sir. However, what I will tell you is this, as uncomfortable as I was with it, Mr. Roos came in, you know, via video and personally, and completely turned me around. I gotta be honest with you. The way he presented himself, his style, his demeanor, his intelligence completely overcame any challenges I had with his previous work experience with Gina Raimondo. It's my understanding that he was not part of the 2012 restructuring. He came in after the fact. His job was to help mitigate the the federal litigation that came from it. So he wasn't directly involved in anything that had to do with pension reform. He was brought in after the fact to handle certain aspects of other things. That also settled me a lot when it came to that. So I'm sure that there's a lot of concern in the room. Rest assured, listen, I'm a pretty straight shooter. I'm pretty sure everybody in this room knows that. If I have an opinion, I'm gonna give it to you whether you ask for it or not. That being said, the way Mr. Roos presented himself, his intelligence, the whole package, everything that he came in and showed us overcame any concern that I had about that aspect of his resume. So I just wanted to make that clear to everybody.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate Matt making that comment. We spent an exhaustive amount of time really vetting issues like that with every candidate, right? Even those from out of state. But in this particular case, knowing the sensitivity of history in Rhode Island and the importance of this position, we spent a lot of time, and we engaged Mr. Roos on that subject quite a bit as well. And I think, and as Matt noted, I think to a fault, Mr. Roos was incredibly transparent about the network and about those connections and about his involvements. And I think that really allowed us in a very sensitive way to be able to openly discuss those issues. But for a 5-member, very diverse committee that approached this process very differently, for us to all come to the same conclusion, I think it speaks for itself. But let me stop talking, because you don't want to listen to me. I think we want to hear from Mr. Roos. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I'm gonna start just by saying thank you. I've been to a large number of parent board meetings, a little more nervous in this one. It's an honor to be here. I want to thank you, the governance committee, because your questions were very thoughtful and really forced me to think about how I approach this. Thank you to the board chair for communicating with me. And thank you for all of you for what's about to be hopefully a very thoughtful question and answer session. You know, I want to say just a couple of things about where I'm coming from and how I might bring some strengths. I do have a lot of experience, but I come to this job, if you were to go forward today, from a sense of humility. You know, Frank, I approached this knowing Frank pretty well and knowing some number of the staff here, and I think that there's been a great deal of public service here in the building, and I would start from a point of wanting to build on that. I've said many times, I think, you know, looking at where we are as a system, but as a world today, there's a lot of hard things coming up in the short, medium, and longer term. Technology is changing, the economy is changing. The national landscape is changing, and I think this is a time where this particular system needs a steady hand, but also a steady hand that's been through big changes. For those of you who know me, I work in government, but when I left this role, working for Treasure Magazine, I went back to work for Google for the second time. My job there was to approach a set of entities that had not really changed their behavior on using technology in a long time, and try and convince not just one client, not just the sales, hey, can I get you to buy something, but try and get a whole industry kind of change the way they use technology, the way they use data, the way they thought about communicating. And I was very proud to be someone who could be a trusted partner in this board, to help understand that. The strengths I hope you'll see through my history and through this session and any references I can provide is that, I think I would be a good candidate in any state, but I do have knowledge of some of the history of this particular system, and I care about it. I care about the people who work here. My management style is, as I've evolved through my life, having, managed when I was young, and maybe made some mistakes, and managing when I was, in my forties, and hopefully doing a little bit better and managing again. Is that good management is coaching. You have to have a great team, you have to believe in them, you have to bring them together. And my ambition would be to take what I think is a very strong, talented staff, system that, while it has challenges, has had a lot of thought poured into it and make it one of the best places of government. When I think of what kind of draws me back to public service right at this time, I see just so much kind of national, steady, just conversation about how government can't do things well. And I will be here early and stay here late and work as hard as I can to make this a piece of government that people can be proud of, that is well polished, that is, I will be responsive to you as the board. I would hope that I could, make you all even better at your jobs, and anticipating your needs, leading into how technology can make your jobs and votes, easier and more clear to see, and help build consensus. I'd kind of end with a very kind of simple thing, that I think many of you know my life here in Rhode Island to some degree, but, I grew up in Indiana. My father was a political science professor. He, spent 42 years teaching in one place, and he had, students that he pushed to go into public service every year, and every year they did. Every place I've ever worked, I found someone who had studied with said, hey, I took this job because your dad convinced me it was the right thing to do. My desire to participate in public service is very important, and I want to bring that to work with you. I was also told I should keep it kind of short so that we can maximize your input. So I'll stop there and hope that I can communicate even more in your questions.
Sure. Now I'd like to move on to any board members who have questions for Mr. Roos. Sandra, please.
As a board member, we have a fiduciary responsibility both to our members and of course to the fund itself. There are some serious problems pertaining to our responsibility to our members. And you were certainly well aware of them because you were here and you were present for the legislation that, well, I won't go into it, but I think we all realize how unnecessary it was. Are you amenable to change? Are you amenable to looking at the system and seeing that it is not working for current retirees? And what can we do to fix that?
It's a great question, and I want to show you something that was raised in several different ways with the governance committee. So I'll say this. I wouldn't view it as the role of the executive director to drive change. Like I would be a leader that would help manage the system. I don't think I would have any unilateral ability to do that, and I would be responsive to the board on that. Second, the question is, there will be changes. Like if you look at recent history, the legislature takes this very seriously. They've, done work. There's many elected officials have a role. And I would view the role of the executive director to be a center of knowledge, develop expertise to advise the people who are making policy, and make sure that we're transparent and clear. So I don't start from a point of saying there should be no changes. I also don't come in and say, I have an agenda of changes that I think should be made, because I don't think that's necessarily the role of executive director.
But would you support the board if the board were to come forward with a resolution as far as the change that really has to take place?
So. Absolutely. If the board comes to a consensus and takes a vote, you know, I report to you.
What else?
From my perspective, I'm relatively new to the board and I take my position quite seriously. We've got 30,000 retirees. However, we've lost 14,000 retirees since ERSRI 2011 was enacted. Some of members of the board, some members of the system have been working with Speaker Circacci and Senate Leader Chacon regarding implementing changes. We've been working with the General Treasurer on this. We're looking for change, not maintaining the status quo, but moving forward. Are you flexible in implementing new changes? There are a lot of criticisms the way the system currently is enacted and how it's operated. Some people question the interaction between the members of the system and the system itself. Are you looking to modernize it and bring it into ease of use? Questions arise as what's the value of the system? There's disparity on that. What's the value of the system? We use two different numbers regarding state workers and teachers. Are you looking to simplify that, make it easily understandable to not only the members of the system, but also the members of the General Assembly who are going to be key in bringing forth any changes?
That's also a great question, and thank you. And I feel like I need to take that in one or two different directions. Let me first say to everyone, I don't think I'd be interested in this role if it did not present challenges and opportunities to improve things. Right? I'm not here to come sit in the chair and like call Heidi once a week, say, hey, great work. I want to dig in and do work. Some of that I think can be done very much at the staff level. It takes staff that's very hardworking, that's very committed and implement new systems. I think we can all be very honest. One of Frank's greatest strengths was his knowledge of the minutia. And one of the things that technology is going to allow us to do is to get more shared knowledge in more usable ways. So, we will be able to, again, maybe not on day one, but over time, make information accessible. Then I would say, if you're asking my approach on how to do that, I think it's really centered on two things. You have to make changes that are in fact doable, right? Like I can't promise that everything will be magically different on day two. You have to have a plan for implementation that values of transparency and trust. I think of something the executive director can do is have great trust with the member of the ERSRI staff. That's a stakeholder that not everyone else has. It's a very important stakeholder to me. You have to have trust with the board. I think Frank had a lot of trust with the board. That was my experience when I worked here. But Frank, had so much in his head, I think it was hard for it all to get out. And I'd be looking for ways to make sure I'm communicating as much of what I see as possible. And then you have your external stakeholders. You have all the members of the system, both, active employees and retirees and the legislature and, the executive. So those are all, stakeholders and groups, entities that I would make it a goal to be as transparent with and build as much trust with. And I would approach that through systematic planning. I think there's no magic wand that you have to use a process. You say, when we'll hit certain benchmarks, when are we going to be able to share new things? Does that address most of your questions?
To a point, I'm a big believer in plan of actions and milestones. To get to here, you start here and then work your way through the most difficult situations. And I'm also looking to fight the inertia. This is the way we've always done it, so that's the way we'll continue to do it. Whereas as one of my compatriots always refers to the Gordian knot, I'm a believer in the way Alexander approached it. Just take the sword, cut it, and move forward. And I'm hoping that you will follow that mold and go forward, not look to the past, but look to the future. And that's just my comment.
I was going to say pretty much the same thing. I think the newer members to the board, not having been here for the many years that other people have, we were surprised that for the most part, the attitude of the board, and I don't mean this negatively, is to maintain the status quo. And very often that is the best path to follow. But when the status quo has problems, when the system is not working for the very people it was established to, we, as Aldo said, past practice, it comes in very handy in certain circumstances, but in others, you can't relate to past practice because times have changed. The economy has changed. Laws have been passed. So we cannot maintain a status quo that's not working.
Any other board members have?
Thank you
any
for that,
questions?
Sean.
Yeah.
Sorry, I lose my voice. I so much. Just I lose my voice. I was very concerned. Look at your resume. And I was like, you're chief for Gina Raimondo. I'm really scared.
Well, I can address that very directly. I would ask of you, if now and, if we are lucky enough to work together going forward, to look at the, course of people I've worked for, causes I've been engaged with, and what I've shown through my behaviors and history and care about. I in no way want to hide anything. I did work for her. I didn't want to take that off my resume. That would be honest. I want to be transparent. But I think you'll see if you look at my background, I think we would have a lot of shared values, and I do approach this as someone who cares deeply about the members. I care deeply about the organizations that represent the members, and I care deeply about their retirees.
The one point I will say for the committee is that some of I have all the questions here, but the subjects that we talked about with Mr. Roos included a few of these, which I think hit this point exactly. And it was balancing policy stability with necessary innovation. We covered that at length. We talked about identifying and mitigating risks in the system. We talked about organizational resistance to change, and we talked about that at some length. And then we also talked about the organizational culture and how the new executive director would manage change, which I think it was a foregone conclusion of the committee that the organization does have to change, right? And change is not necessarily a bad thing. We're just not sure what that change is going to look like. So we did cover those subjects in both the remote interviews and the in-person interviews at some length. But I just wanted to note that for anybody who had any follow-ups to that line of questions. Yeah, for sure.
Any further questions from the board? Yes, Gene.
First of all, I want to thank Andy and I want to thank Kim for their leadership in this thing. This interview process got a lot more intense than I anticipated. And Andy just kept us going, he just kept us working, Kim just kept us going in the same direction, so I'm grateful that they were both there. If there's no other questions, I would like to move that we accept Andrew Roos to the position of executive director for ERSRI, and also that the governance committee be allowed to entertain the negotiation with the students.
I'll second that.
Cool.
Good. So my own comments is I want to thank Andy and the committee for volunteering countless hours in this whole process. That was very thorough. I think as Bill mentioned, I've been in executive search before, and this is definitely the longest and more in-depth that I've ever seen. I also want to give a particular shout out to Heidi. Like Frank's been out of this building for a few months, and yes, we all miss him and his bow ties. But I think from disruptional work, there's been none, right? And so she's been able to keep everything moving seemingly well, and no issues. I don't hear much about her unless there's a meeting in my office. So I want to give her a big round of applause for well deserving of that, and I absolutely agree with you, Gene, that the governance committee should upon approval negotiate with Andrew. Please.
I'd just like to add, it was a long drawn out process, and when the process started, I had a head of hair like the treasurer.
So you have a motion, a second, we'll do a roll call.
Okay, Treasurer Diaz.
Yes.
Jean Rondo.
Yes.
Mark Carrillo.
Yes.
Michael Cicerone.
Yes.
Joseph Codiga.
Yes.
Matthew Howard.
Yes.
Yen Lee.
Sorry. Yes.
Okay. Brandon McLeod.
Yes.
William Murray.
Absolutely.
Claire. Yes. Andrew Nada.
Yes.
Alan Palazzo.
Yes.
Sandra Paquette.
Yes.
Dr. Shahu.
Yes.
Michael Tui.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Great. Andy,
Exactly.
Andy, we'll wait on you for next steps and we'll work with Heidi.
Sounds great.
Great. All right.
Like tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's your only job, right?
Yeah.
All right, then no further business.
I was just going to ask,
Yeah.
what is the correct spelling of, Mr. Ruth's last, name?
Yeah, we can send you over the.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, my computer was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. There's no other further business. I'll take a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.